I'm going to call to order the meeting of October 16, 2018 at 7 p.m. Can I have a moment of silence for all those serving inside and outside our borders, please? All right. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mayor, can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Adrian Sandoval.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark.
Here.
Harold Leggett. Nick Ralston.
Here.
Spencer Bradnan.
Here.
Troy Blum.
Here.
Hope Morris.
Here. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment, since Ms. Tara Fowler from Apollo Solutions is here to join us for action item G, initiation of preliminary energy analysis. Can we move that up to action item A and move everything down so she doesn't have to sit through all of our meetings?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, as amended. Audience participation. Do I have anybody who wants to speak in front of the board? Just here to join. All righty. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda, which includes the meeting minutes for October 2nd, 2018, the financials, and the paid bills.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Action items. We'll go to G, which is now A, initiation of preliminary energy analysis with Apollo Solutions Group. Mr. Ricky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, last meeting, a brief presentation was given. It was as a presentation, discussion item only at the time. We brought it back to this meeting for the board to consider approving at no cost of the town preliminary, that's a tough word, preliminary analysis, in which approximately how long will it take to do that for the town to receive that back to consider? I don't recall.
From after the audit is completed?
Yes.
Usually about a month.
Okay. So that would be an analysis of what was discussed in the last meeting with some energy efficiency savings to the town with all our facilities. I'd recommend moving forward with that analysis.
Any questions, concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to, sorry, I don't have it pulled up.
I make a motion to authorize Apollo Group Solutions to conduct a preliminary energy analysis of town-owned properties for potential energy savings and report back to the board at the earliest convenience for consideration.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Ms. Fowler.
you. So I'll get with David and organize a time where we can meet
Sounds
and do that. All right.
All right.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you
coming
all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Okay, let me find my spot here. Moving to action item B, purchase and sale agreement of 410 Goodrich Avenue. Mr. Rankin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting, since the continuance, the board authorized for Mr. Stephen DeRise to secure funding on this purchase. Mr. Brandon and I met with him last week, toured the old shop at 14 Goodrich, answered the questions he had, went through the agreement, talked to the town attorney, seemed to be satisfied with the answers I gave him. He did leave me a message this afternoon. Unfortunately, his wife is ill, is at the hospital. He could not attend tonight. On his voice message, he said he'd call me tomorrow, but otherwise, he has not secured financing to date. He would understand if the board did not give him another continuance, but I don't know if I don't know where he's at on that, to be honest with you. So the board may grant that till the first meeting in November, or as he's aware, because I made it very clear to him last week that this can't continue forever. We can open it back up. If we do so, I'd suggest the town put a listing price on it, not use a realtor for sale by owner, and take offers and he rebid if he wants. I don't have enough information from Mr. Derise that he secured anything at this time. And I propose we sell that property this year if we can.
I agree.
And that's all I have.
I mean, he said plenty of time to get funding for this problem.
What was he saying the hang up was?
Initially, the banks he had talked to, he didn't mention who, I didn't ask, had questions on that non-conforming use aspect of the buildings. We went over that to the code. Even though it's non-conforming use, you can still renovate the building and use it as is. As it's multi-family zone, so you use it for storage, make an apartment out of it, single-family dwelling if he wants to put into it. You just can't expand the site.
Right. And that's what the banks are liking, that's.
Apparently, I don't know for sure.
So if we were to open it back up, can we require some sort of pre-qualification for financing in our offer?
That's typical, don't want a realtor as well.
That we could possibly avoid this in the next one.
Sure. Before I would solicit any offers or accept any offers, and I'd have them provide me a pre-qual letter before I brought it to the board.
Yeah. I think we would set that asking price at something higher than the 40,000 that we had set.
It was actually 140.
140.
Okay, yeah. It was 140?
Yes, sir.
Or we could extend him another, effectively 30 days. Is that the other option?
Well, he's had.
It would be like 2 weeks, right?
I'd only go 2 weeks. Well, actually, it'd be 3 weeks to the next meeting, November 6th.
I'd be more in favor of that myself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly
Well,
interested in.
we're gonna get the funding,
You
I
know,
mean,
make
he's
sure
not
it's
had
clear,
it now.
that's it. That's as long as we go.
Well, right, I agree, I wouldn't go any more than 3 weeks, but.
If we're trying to get it sold this year, though, that's the thing, you got.
Right.
I don't know that we can push it much further.
Another 3 weeks is.
But who knows if we'll get an offer.
Well, there's that fact too.
Right.
One suggestion, if I may, gonna meet in the middle. I think Mary told me the ordinance, the 30-day passing will be October 25th. The board can take action to allow him until the 25th to secure financing and make payment to the town, or else at the time, we'll open it back up for offers. Not even have to wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
I think that's gonna meet in the middle.
It does.
Again, 1 more week.
Sure.
Basically, is what it boils down to.
Sounds like a good solution.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
We need a vote or? just
I would ask for a vote on this. It's a financial matter.
So I make a motion to continue the sale of the Goodrich, 410 Goodrich property until the expiration on October 25th. And at that point, we'll open it up for a new sale. Do we make that all in the same motion?
Yes.
Okay.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so carried.
Did you get that, Mary? Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to, C, resolution 2018-16, a resolution endorsing proposition 110 to statewide transportation sales tax solution dedicated to transportation. Mr. Rankin?
Previously, the board made a resolution regarding Proposition 112 on the setbacks. This is on 110, transportation bill. And your resolution points out is a 0.62 or 62 cents a percent, 0.62% increase statewide for transportation funding. It says it will potentially raise $766 million the first year and allow for bonding of $6 billion for state projects. And potentially 40% of the new revenue will go toward county municipal governments to address local transportation needs. One of many ballot questions coming up here in 3 weeks on November 6th. The last meeting, the board talked in general about endorsing this proposition. I'm not sure, I don't have any numbers, what this could impact Platteville as far as our revenues for road improvements. I just don't have that, it's not available. But it is for board consideration tonight.
There's gonna be some kind of increase.
And they say 40% of the increase goes to municipalities, to local, correct?
That is what the proposition
Yeah, 45% to CDOT for state transportation projects, including debt repayment, 40% to local governments for transportation projects, and 15% for multimodal transportation projects. So I brought the book out. I know everybody's got their little blue book that they received, and I wasn't at the previous meetings, but I saw the agenda, and my concern is, why are we bringing up these state ballot initiatives to the board to endorse or to oppose, when, I mean, we're gonna just pick and choose which ones we're gonna endorse and oppose, and then it's a record vote. And so I know how I'm gonna vote on these things, but I don't agree with some of the way, as a board, we're gonna vote on these. So does it have to be a unanimous vote for the board to endorse this or to oppose these initiatives? Or so I have a concern that we're bringing these up and picking and choosing which ones we want to endorse or oppose. Why do we need to do that as a town board?
Well, it protects us, remember, the 112, the 112 is, you know, we've got to support the oil companies.
Well, how does, I mean, as a board, why, as a town, why?
Because they brought in a lot of money to us. They took us out of the red to the black.
Okay.
And we're getting
Well,
a lot of
the whole state has been that way because of the oil and gas.
okay.
So,
So you can't
but what if I'm
fight against
against that as a person? You know, my views are different than your views or other people's views.
Yeah, but you're not making these decisions for you personally. You're making this decision for the whole town. This has nothing to do with you personally. This has to make decisions for the whole town. I mean, I might not agree with that too, but I mean, I'm protecting the town. I'm not making this decision based on my own opinions or my own thoughts. It's for the town. We're here
So
to make a decision for
we're
the town.
endorsing certain, it's like endorsing a candidate. I might have put on here that I'm gonna endorse Walker Stapleton as governor, and I want the town board to support that. I mean, that's
No,
what.
it's not the same.
That's the same
Troy,
thing.
I had some of the same concerns when we first brought up the volleyball proposition, so I did some research into this, and this is a very common practice for towns to endorse measures that can be favorable for them or disfavorable. So the 112 for the town of Platteville is going to, from a budget standpoint, is going to be very unfavorable for us. It's essentially a ban on oil and gas in the state of Colorado. I don't know if I personally agree with everything better, but for the town of Platteville, it seems like a bad thing. As far as Amendment 74 goes, that's going to open up the door for the town to be, open up to lawsuits.
So it's a ceremonial coming together saying we are in favor of this or we are opposed.
I just think that's not a position for a town board to be put, you know, to put out there for that, because like 110 is a state tax increase when, to fix the roads is what it's for, and 109 does the same thing, but it's a bond and fixes the roads specifically. I've talked to Lori Sane, Congressman Lori Sane, and some other people about this stuff, and you know, if you want to vote on it, fine, we can vote on it here, but just know that it's a vote for record on this. And but the state has other money, resources that increase the tax, the state taxes, and she said that last year we brought in over $1 billion, and it's just that bureaucracy gets involved, and even though it says that it's going to go to this and to that and that, it's not guaranteed, because whoever's in control of the governorship and the Congress can move that money anywhere else, like they did with the marijuana money. They sold it as money for the schools and the education system, and have they seen that money? They made it impossible to try to get. So,
Well, I think if we are in, voting to support it or oppose it, the way it's written is what we're doing. And we're all free to vote how we please.
well, I just think that we shouldn't be putting ourselves as a town board on these resolutions, because then we could, one wants to just go through the whole book and do this. So I just think that we shouldn't start this trend of picking and choosing what things we can oppose and.
How many
support.
years historically has boards taken action on resolutions for ballot measures?
After the last meeting, I spoke to Kendra, our town attorney, and she said most of her clients, she has roughly 8 on a given basis. It's discretionary. If the board feels during any election that there's a proposition or a ballot measure that could impact them negatively or positively, she says it's not uncommon for them to take a stance, and they can pick and choose. They don't have to take one on every one. It's just ones of interest. So it is purely discretionary, but it's, as she said, it's fairly common. It just depends on the election and what's going on in the state and in the local community.
So for the town of Platteville, how many years have we been doing this?
Since I've been manager, some elections, none, but this one, definitely. But we've had a few in the past. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, this is my 3rd year on the board, and this is the first time we've done anything like this.
Yeah.
Well, it's the first time it's affected the town too.
I remember opposing, something, I can't remember what measure it was 4 years ago.
There's been a few, not a great many, to be honest with you. There's been a few. It just depends on how the board feels about certain topics at the time.
Exactly.
I'd like to take the opportunity to speak against the resolution and Proposition 110 for the following reasons. First of all, sales tax, in my opinion, is one of the most regressive forms of taxation out there. It disproportionately has a negative effect on fixed income individuals and lower income individuals, because they're the biggest percentage of their income is going to sales tax. Secondly, it would seem to me more appropriate if highways were funded more based on user taxes, which would include gasoline tax, registration taxes, highway taxes, so on and so forth. These are the people who use the highways, and it seems more fair that the people who use the service pay for the service. Sales tax is inherently unfair. People in lower income brackets and fixed incomes are the ones that are most negatively affected by the imposition of sales tax.
Do you want to move to continue this indefinitely?
No.
I would move to table it.
I second that.
This table, it'll basically fall off because the election is at the next meeting.
Well, okay, not all, I don't agree to it, so I'm not gonna vote for it.
Well, we have a motion and a second to table it, so it's gonna be tabled and dropped, so there's no record, correct, Troy?
Well, we have record that this was posted by the board, but there's no record of how the board.
How the
feels
board
about
votes, yeah.
that. Correct.
So we don't vote on it?
We're going to be voting to table this. So I have a motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed?
I oppose it.
Okay. So resolution 2018-16, move to table. All in favor except Hope, and she's opposed to table. All right, resolution 2018-17, a resolution opposing amendment 74, an attempt to amend the Colorado Constitution to drastically limit state and local government services at high cost to taxpayers. Mr. Rankin?
Another fairly highly publicized through the campaign on the ballot initiative. The county attorney last meeting 2 weeks ago mentioned this one. Her firm and her clients have been looking at this resolution as well, or similar ones. Similar to the last one, many communities, based upon the impact it potentially could have on municipal and county governments, have been opposing it. So CML, Colorado Municipal League, came out in recent weeks opposing it. In your resolution, talks about expanding the ability of private citizens and corporations to seek just compensation for reduced market value resulting from state or local government regulations or ordinances. Essentially, going further with the conversation with the county attorney last week, it would potentially severely limit this governing body of the planning commission's authority on doing land use applications. Because the surrounding neighbor could sue the town if they can show that their property value has been impacted negatively. She mentioned another state, I don't recall at this time which state it was, that passed a similar resolution or ballot measure. And I don't know the exact facts, but it has cost, she claimed, or indicated, millions of dollars in taxpayer money. We're using taxpayer money to pay these claims if we get sued. So everybody's impacted, whether you like it or not.
Well, this is like eminent domain. If somebody, if the government says, I want, like if you guys decide you want to take part of my property to do rentals, then I don't get fair market value.
That's not true. That's not what this is about.
It's one aspect of it. If we change a zoning regulation that impacts someone's property and their value goes down, you can look at different scenarios. If the board approves annexing in a cattle yard on the north side of town and the residents say, hey, my property value just went down because of that impact, that would be, you know, you can use different examples. But eminent domain obviously is one of many that could, I mean, I did a little bit of research on myself. There's different scenarios. Different scenarios. Again, it's a discretionary level.
I'm never in favor of taking private property owners' rights. This, in my opinion, needs to be defined and clear. So there's some sort of balance. I think we try our best as a board to consider all effects on property owners before making any kind of a decision. And I would hope that the rest of the governing bodies do the same. But this is scary.
Well, it's gonna cost the town some money, so. you know.
So in section 15, it says, take a property for public use, compensation, how ascertained. Private property shall not be taken or damaged or reduced in fair market value by government law or regulation for public or private use without just compensation. Such compensation shall be ascertained by a board of commissioners of not less than 3 freeholders or by a jury when required by the owner of the property in such manner, or may be prescribed by law. So, just read out the book here what it is, so, I mean, it's just.
Right, and I think we're all making
As a property owner, I wouldn't want, you know, I want what's fair for my property, and I think anybody else in this room would want what was fair and marketable for their property, so.
yeah, but I also don't want the town, just because you can't do something to your property, and you take us to court. So there goes your taxpayer money that we can't use to improve the town.
That forces the planning commission and the board to make a decent decision that's gonna be fair for the town and the property owner.
But if the idea that your property rights have been infringed on is subjective, we could say that we're improving the quality of life for town by allowing the business to come in. But the person next to it could say that their property rights were hurt because we allowed them to come in. We all agree it was a good thing, but it ends up biting us. We're gonna have to pay out. That's where I see this as a problem.
And in the last meeting, Kendra notified us that we could get sued above and beyond the property value lost. They can sue for damages.
And, you know, if you really do it.
Yeah, I, had many conversations today with several mayors in the state of Colorado, and there's one example that really sticks out for me. In a town not too far away, there's a question of a helipad coming in, and nearby neighbors don't want it to come in. and they say that it's gonna decrease their property value. So if they allow it to come in, they're gonna be sued. If they don't allow it to come in, the person who wants to put the helipad in is gonna say their property value is decreased and the town gets sued. If Amendment 74 passes.
So either way, they get sued.
I think it puts us all in between a rock and a hard spot.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2018-17, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville opposing Amendment 74 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, moving on to action item E, review of parking restrictions for recreational vehicles, trailers, commercial vehicles, section 16-3-120 and 16-3-130 of the Platteville Municipal Code. Mr. Rankin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I previously mentioned in previous meetings, regulations on street parking for wrecked vehicles and boats, also on private property, has surfaced. I've received in the last few months complaints, kind of on both sides, if you will, that we have too many out there. They're not parking according to ordinance or regulations, and others are going to basically defend what they're doing, and most of them are following, not all, the current regulations. You have in your packet a copy of current regulations on storing and parking wrecked vehicles and commercial vehicles. In essence, the board amended this a few years ago to allow a maximum of two, either two wrecked vehicles, classified by definition. That's, you know, boat, trailer, camper, RV. There's a definition code. Or commercial vehicle, such as a semi-truck, but it can't be parked in the street. There's an ordinance that allows it to be parked on private property, certain setbacks, far surface, or other classified commercial vehicles by DMV. The one thing that came to light this last month is River Street, parking over there on the east side of Valley Village. Due to their own internal regulations, a lot of people park on the street. Normal vehicles are fine, we don't regulate down any public street. But when it comes to the trailers that are parked over there, the ordinance does clearly state, if you have a trailer for daily use, you can park it on the street and has to leave at least every 72 hours. It can be gone for 72 hours if not used daily. But it has to be parked immediately in front of that owner's property. So those are easy to address, because that does not qualify as that owner's personal property. I feel sorry for them, but that's the way it is. There are some other properties in town where I've seen trailers and campers and RVs and they're parking across the street. I get complaints that people can't park in front of my house. Well, technically by law they can. It's just common courtesy, you don't park in front of someone else's house. I live 3 blocks away and I talk to my neighbors, and if we have a gathering, get together, I get their permission. And it's just an option. So I think what I'm trying to get at as far as this is concerned, I don't feel that the ordinance is out of line. I want to approach the board on 2 topics on this ordinance. Is the limit of 2, the next 2 RV, wrecked vehicles, 2 commercial, or combo 1 of each, but max of 2 total. Is that appropriate? Number 1, and number 2, the 72-hour limit. A few years ago it was 48 hours for parking on the street, unless it's a work trailer from someone working at home and it's gone every day and brought back every night. That's part of the regulation that's allowed. So we have a lot of self-employed people in town. Those are the 2 topics I want the board to discuss and see if you feel that's appropriate. But I've had several calls today alone, because Safe Built, Chris, we contract with him 1 day a week. I'm gonna bring up code enforcement later on in this meeting. I need somebody here daily, if not 3 times a week, to properly regulate this, because when he comes in 1 day a week and he gives notices like today, most of the notices people are complying, he just can't regulate that coming in here every Tuesday. I tried to advertise that position, but I couldn't get it qualified to do the job. So as far as this is concerned, do you feel that 72 hours is appropriate, number 1? The number of vehicles is appropriate, number 2? Because we have properties in town that have 3, 4, 5, well, either commercial vehicles, trailers, or RVs on the property.
Well, I agree with the 2 vehicles. I don't agreed with extending it back to 72 hours.
It's currently 72.
Oh, it is, so we need to take it to 48 hours.
48 was what it previous was, and just to recap, the reason behind that is someone is camping, and they bring it on a Friday, and then they clean it up, and they don't take it back to storage or park it in the backyard or whatever until Monday morning, they're in violation with 48 hours. So that's part of the reason why the board changed it to 72, to give them the full weekend to do that adjustment. The kicker to that is someone comes back on Monday and parks it, they have until the end of Wednesday, then like one gentleman talked to me, he said, I'm not gonna move it, I'm gonna leave Thursday morning and go camping again. So you have to have somebody, a different topic obviously, that can regulate that on a daily basis. Some people think it's a big deal.
Well, that's too bad that we're gonna have to go to that extent, and I guess we'll have to do it.
And I've heard all sides, as I'm sure you have, that's why people move and live in a small town.
Like
We don't have HOA regulations, but we do have a municipal code.
I think two vehicles is plenty enough, because, you know, someone's got a boat and camper, or, you know, or a commercial trailer, and a camper or a boat, you know, but I think more than two is, they need to pay for storage for somewhere to park it.
And this year's really surfaced that most of my complaints have come out of Rogers Farm subdivision, Old Homestead subdivision, because of the impact of what's happening on the streets. It depends on the lots too.
Yeah,
You know, where I live, I mean, or in Old Town, you have alley access, you have some bigger lots. Those lots are pretty much uniform as far as size, because they're newer development, different standards. People made adjustments and they gravelled or rocked their side yard and so on and so forth. But, I've had a lot of complaints over the summer that there's just more trailers and campers and boats out there than I've ever seen before. And they claim visibility issues, safety issues, and I went around myself to look. And depending on the night, Adrian, you not talked about this where you live and where I live. You may not find an open parking spot on the side street anywhere, depending on what street you're on. So it is an impact, but is this ordinance sufficient? I just need to find somebody that can enforce on a regular basis.
I think 2 vehicles in 72 hours is
Right,
fair.
me too.
Does it need to be stricter or loose? I mean, the way it is today is fine with me.
And this constitutes vehicles that are parked in a fenced-in backyard as well, right? I know how I read it, unless they're in an enclosed structure.
Exactly.
So
For example, if I have a garage and I park my boat, but I also have a camper and a trailer, as long as it's inside, my third one, I can still have 2 visible outside. So it depends on your property, it really does.
I'm comfortable regulating someone's backyard.
Yeah.
I'm not all about that at all. So I would be not inclined to change this at all. And if I was inclined, I'd up the number of vehicles, my personal opinion. So,
Yeah, too many vehicles, I mean, you only have so much room in front of your house, I don't want your vehicles. I don't care if it is.
But if you have a
I don't want in front of my
some
house.
people's properties are different, like we talked about before with property, situational property. Some people's lots are set up where they have a backyard, they have a business, they might have a trailer, a camper, and a boat. You know. There's certain situations where everyone can fall into it. It's hard.
Would
If you have the space on your lot to park it, and the town's telling you not to, that's a tough
Well,
spot.
then
would you be happy with 2 vehicles in 72 hours on the street and exempting any vehicles that are parked on your property, whether that's visible or not?
I don't know if we need to go that far. I'm fine with just.
Well, this is really just
I'm fine with just
addressing
leaving it the way it
the
is.
congestion on the street.
Yeah.
So right now, it's 2 vehicles,
It's 2 RV/commercial vehicles, either a mix of 2 wrecked vehicles, 2 commercial vehicles, or 1 of each, maximum 2 period. And they can be parked
They both could be on the street.
on the street for 72 hours, but then they have to be moved for another 72 hours unless they're being used daily for work purposes. Otherwise, they have to be parked on the side yard or rear yard on a hard surface. You can have more than 2 if it's fully enclosed in a shed or Quonset or garage. So
what was the request that we would lower, the majority of the requests you got was that we would lower the number to 1? Or we would up the, what was the?
I've had both, to be honest with you, because I go around today just to kind of gauge where we're currently at, and I see some properties where they have 3 rec vehicles, and I see some properties where they have a combination of 4. One property, where I live, they have 4 trailers. I mean, it just depends on, again, you talk about property value, you talk about lifestyle living, and what people expect to see in the evening when they go home or sitting on, having a barbecue. I've had all those conversations with people.
Just to be clear, when you say 4, you're not talking about 4 on the street, you're talking about 4 on their lot. Right? Which technically is a violation.
Yep, I've had 2.
So I have some audience members who want to come up and speak. Curtis, will you come to the podium,
Yeah.
please?
Well, and just real quick,
Curtis, we know you. Can you, for the record, state your name and address, please?
hi, my name is Curtis Moore. I live at 723 Goodrich Court. Thank you very much. Now, as a homeowner, I've lived here for 12 years. Everyone on our cul-de-sac is real considerate. If they have family coming in from out of town with an RV or whatever, usually they'll stop by and say, hey, someone's coming to visit. Okay, no problem. I don't think we've ever had an issue with them just parking there and just being rude about it. Now again, as Troy mentioned, if we're getting ready to have a barbecue or something, I literally walk around the cul-de-sac and let everyone know that it's gonna be real busy here on this day, this time, whatever. We just had that recently with Dad's wake. My concern is of course the number of vehicles, both work or private use. An example I will give you, and Carl was made aware of this a few weeks ago, our neighbors across the street from us have 6 vehicles. Literally 3 cars and 3 work trucks, and they have resorted to parking one of their work trucks up in their yard. And I'm sorry, but to me that's just tacky. It's very, well, it is, but literally, they'll park a car in the garage, 2 in the driveway, they'll have 1 work truck on their gravel to the side, 1 on the street, and 1 in the yard. And that's getting to be a little much. So, and I know Carl said he was gonna pass that on to our code guy and find out what it states. So, yeah, it does get to be a concern.
Thank you, Curtis. Anybody else?
Absolutely, I'd like to make a statement.
You come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
My name's Ryan Essex. I live at 715 Roger Circle. I'm also, I'm sure, a critical violator of multiple vehicles. But we're talking about before, I think you mentioned that he's lived here for 12 years. I think 12 years ago, I think the whole industry and the climate and the type of work that people do have changed dramatically here. I know that this is an emissions-free city, or kind of part of the county. I understand a big part of that is because of the agriculture. I know that there's still a big play in agriculture here, but I do know that a big change has been in the blue collar increase, and not just Colorado, but in the Will County area. Myself, I've lived here for about 3.5 years. Initially, I took a little bit of flack from, my cars, and I know personally that I could do a lot better, and I'm not here today because I haven't been receiving any flack or anything, but in support of other people who have. And I think it's important to remember that the majority of the people here who are taxpayers, who are property owners, who pay property taxes, who license their recreational vehicles, who have their commercial businesses that they do because of the type of industry that's really around here. I think it's important to take those people into consideration too, and those are the people who are also buying these houses for insane amounts of money. I mean, I don't think when I moved here from Kentucky 9 years ago, I would have ever thought I'd live out in the middle of nowhere and pay so much for a house. So I feel, which is great, and the houses here are certainly cheaper than, say, Berthoud or Loveland or even Thornton and areas that are more congested with people. But I think it's important to take into consideration that the people help driving those property values up are the people willing to buy the houses. And I would say as of late, and especially if this is a complaint that's come up in the last couple of years, I would say that the people who are driving the property values up are probably the people being complained about. And I think that's I'm not trying to get us to change this idea of the 2 cars in the street and and all that other stuff, but I do think it's important, I understand that people are concerned about that, but they are also the people who are buying the houses. They're the people who are trying to sell their houses. The people going to be affected by Proposition 112, such as myself, and even people who may be affected by, Proposition 74 and everything that the state does. I know that we all come together as a community, and I'd love to see that more. And you see stuff like these little applications like the neighborhood where people, talk about each other behind each other's back, and I'd love to see us be better neighbors. And that's, I think, why the majority of us are here. To have that conversation, to put faces on the people that you may or may not like, to put, kind of frame of reference for the type of people who are the home buyers here, who are the Platteville residents in addition to everybody else. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm rebuttaling that one. No, hold on, because you guys don't know something that I had to sign when I moved here. So I'm Meg, Harvest Daze. When I moved into this home over 15 years ago, we had covenants. None of these recreational vehicles were allowed there. And I don't care that they're in the backyards, but when I have people trying to get to my house and they can't even park anywhere near my house, that's bull. We have 10 cars to one neighbor next door to me, and I'm like, come on guys. I get you're having parties, I get it, but not every night. So I get what you're saying, but when we first moved into Rogers, we had covenants, and we had to abide by them. We weren't allowed trailers to be parked on our property, and I got a big rock lot, and I got in trouble for that. So I get what you're saying, but I also sit back and say we have a huge pontoon boat that's no longer there, luckily, on Buckrake. Is that Buckrake? People were gonna be hitting it. They can't get around it because of that island. So I get what everyone's saying. I'm all about it, but I also sit back, get it on your property. Get it off the streets. That's where I'm coming from. And make sure it's not junky for your poor neighbor, because that's where I'm at. I've got a neighbor across the street from me that got the big RV, freaking awesome. They were RVing all over the place, and they'd come back, leave it there for a week. But they told us all, so at that point we were good with it. But it's when they sit there for over an entire summer and you're trying to get around stuff. Or you can't even park your friends in front of your house because your neighbor has the cars everywhere. You can't even park across the street, can't park in front. They blocked my driveway. That wasn't a fun night, because I actually went and dealt with my neighbors. Move your cars and make happy, yes?
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, we're not stopping you, but I'd rather you address the board.
Oh, my bad. So
Sorry.
anyway, the issue is yes, I talked to my neighbors, and now they don't park in front of my house anymore. There's my deal. So I get what you're saying, but we had covenants on that development.
Those covenants, I just might add, which I wasn't made aware of until after I bought my property. One of the covenants, there's several rules inside of those covenants that are kind of arbitrary. And one of them is that no vehicle with a gross vehicle weight of over 10,001 pounds, regardless if it's commercial or personal use, is not allowed to be inside of there. And that's every 3/4 ton diesel pickup. And I don't know if you've looked in the parking lot out here, but the good majority of those, from what I was presented after I bought the house, there's a lot of vehicles out there like that. Signs in the yard, things of that sort.
There is no covenants, is there?
Right.
There's no longer covenants since Journey Homes bought Phase 3 of Rogers Farm back in 2015, 2014. And Mr. Plum, who developed it, enforced those covenants himself. And every year, Meg, when he sent out those letters, I got calls because I didn't know if it was me or who.
Right.
So I just blamed Jim. But you're right, since that expired, and Journey Homes built out Phase 3, they bought the rights to the whole subdivision as far as covenants, and they told me they were going to continue, they were going to abolish them. So it fell back on town code. Valley Village is the same thing. They have their own internal covenants, which are stricter, but they still have to abide by town code regulations. You can be more strict, you just can't be less strict.
I have one.
Sure, can you please come on up?
Hello, I'm Jackie Keeper. I live at 732 Rogers, and I have a camper and a race trailer. And something to go on what you said about the one, I think you said 1 day a month or 1 day a week or something that Chris comes out to enforce. I just want to tell a story from what happened last week to us. We pulled our camper out on Monday since we were going to be going salmon fishing and camping this past weekend. My husband goes to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, doesn't get home until 10:30 at night. So we figured that was the best time. We had a day off. Let's pull it out so we don't bug people like super early in the morning or really late at night. That was pulled out Monday afternoon. I came home today. We got home yesterday, got a notice in the mail from last Tuesday that we had 72 hours to move it. And I thought, well, what the heck? I'm in compliance. Why am I getting into a code enforcement violation? So I can understand the problem that Chris has with being here once, he doesn't know, he doesn't have enough time to grow. But somebody like us, who we talk to our neighbors and try to be as considerate as possible, we don't try to take advantage of the, time frame that we have it out. But sometimes it is there over 72 hours just because my husband's work schedule. But we try very hard not to bother other people or keep it in the way. And we have a really big lot, so we're not infringing upon anybody else's property or anything. I don't know, I'm fine with the two vehicle thing or two camper thing or whatever, but there has to be, I feel like, the 72 hours thing. So we have friends that we go camping with, and like you said, it's their Thursday. We're going right back out in the next weekend, so you put it right back, and then you pull it right back out, but then you run into my husband's problem, who he can't pull it out until 10:30 at night, and I don't know who's gonna have a bigger problem with hearing all this commotion in the middle of the night, or having a camper sitting there hooked up to the truck. Also, friends of mine have campers that sit in the grand storage lot. They don't open until 10 in the morning, and they close at 6. So if you have any kind of a job, it's very difficult to pull a camper in and out of there, in a reasonable time frame. So those are just kind of some of the things that I've noticed. I don't know, the answer to the 72 hours. I get the people who you're trying to, make sure that doesn't happen. I used to live next to one in Hudson. So, but I think the biggest thing is like just trying to be considerate to your own neighbors and talk to them. We've tried to do that, if people are having, like Curtis said, if people are having things, you try to work it out and you try to figure it out. Be good neighbors. Don't get on next door behind a computer and blast everybody that you don't agree with. And that's been frustrating for the whole community, I think. It's just not been a good thing. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know the answer that's best for it. I know people can take advantage of something that you're okay, well, you're gonna, we're gonna give you a little pass on this one, but I know there's people that'll take super advantage of that, but we're not those people. I was just very frustrated today to receive that letter going, I didn't do anything wrong and now I'm getting a code violation.
On the previous Tuesday.
Right. And it was mailed, I checked the post date on the thing, it was mailed last Tuesday.
So were you in violation last Tuesday?
No, I was not.
It was a warning, right?
It was a code, well, it just says code enforcement.
Yeah, it was a warning, if I may, Jackie, and you
Yeah.
probably know your husband Tim, because
Yes.
I spoke to him on the phone.
Yes.
And I explained the situation, I'm trying to remedy it, and it's coming up here as an action item, but, I did tell Chris in the last month, his name's Chris from Safeville, I contracted with him on Tuesdays for 4 hours a day, because it costs a lot of money to contract with Safeville. About a month ago to start regulating, because I was getting a lot of complaints, almost daily, on RVs, campers, boats, you name it. Summertime, Platteville's notorious, like a lot of towns, and we have some fairly soft regulations compared to bigger cities, talk to people in Greeley, Level, so on and so forth. But those notices, like I told Tim, those notices are warnings only, but they look like real citations. And what I told Chris this morning when we chatted, I said, make your rounds again, I'm still getting more complaints, and just give out reminders, and he doesn't have reminders, he has warnings.
Right.
So he said last Tuesday, if he doesn't make personal contact, then he'll mail them. I'm really wanting to get someone here that can do the face-to-face conversation, work with people. Because on occasion I get it maybe 4 days. I mean, we're not trying to hurt people's lives by any means, but, and as far as, I'm with you, I talk to my neighbors when my son graduates or whatever the case may be, but some people just don't like each other. It's not gonna work around town. So when that happens, I have to have regulations on the book by the board to where I can enforce it.
Right.
Because Part of it, there's some language in here, if you have family coming into town, there's no hotels here. But you can up to 21 days throughout the year, 7 days at a time, so 3 times, 3 weeks, not consecutively, have them stay in your RV in your driveway, not in the street. I mean, we try to bend to allow some of this to happen, but I hope Tim's okay with the conversation we had.
Yeah, he will.
Okay, because he said salmon and fishing is his life right now. I guess.
It is. By God, don't make a plan on a Saturday, he'll freak out. But I mean, I appreciate having the dialogue to open it up and talk about it. I mean, that's kind of like what Brian said, you know, put a face to the name of the people that you're affecting and that other people are affecting. Because like you said, sometimes no matter what you do, people won't be happy about it. And we just happen to live in a community over in Rogers Farm where there's a lot of people that have a lot of hobbies and a lot of things that they do, and then some people don't. And
Come on in, Harold.
so I just, you know, I guess I just encourage the talk about it and trying to figure out the best thing. I know that you can't make everybody happy all the time.
It's a hard to make a one-size-fits-all solution on code enforcement, especially this issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there's people that really take advantage or don't, but I don't know. I don't know the answer completely, but I wanted to come and just, you know, kind of tell what happened and kind of see, you know, I don't know, put my voice to it.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for everyone.
So right
Please
now,
do. If you'll come to us in the news. Sorry. No, you're fine.
My name is Davy Smart and I live at 741 Rogers Circle. And we have probably the biggest camper in our subdivision maybe in town, which that's just how we have recreational vehicles and whatnot, so we need that type of camper. But we go camping multiple weekends in a row. If not, there's only one weekend in between that we go. And so we leave on Friday, and we come back Sunday evening, and then we try to get the camper in Monday evening, sometimes it's Tuesday evening. And then we'll go get it again on Friday, and you know, the same thing goes again. So we do try to put it in storage, you know, right away, but we do need time to clean it out and whatnot. And I'm sure to some people it looks like it never moves because we go so often, and so it's, you know, Friday to Monday or Tuesday and back again. So I don't know, I talked to Chris today, and he said that maybe, you know, to talk to Troy because
I got your message, I think you called back.
That's okay, that's okay. But because that happens, I just don't, if people are upset with it, I just want them to know our situation. So it may seem like it doesn't move, but it does. You know, it's gone during the week and then back on the weekends, and I think it's probably more noticeable because of how big it is. But I think we need to take into consideration, like Jackie said, that we are such an active community. And so people are going to have their recreational vehicles, boats, campers, you know, whatever it may be, out. And I'm sure it's hard to keep track of who has stored it for so long, who has brought it out for so long. But maybe we do just need to talk to our neighbors more and, you know, make them aware, excuse me, of our situation. But we need to take it all as a case-by-case basis as well, I think. So, just so that everyone's aware of what the case is for each person. And we don't have, you know, a huge lot, and our camper does take up, you can't see our house when it's parked in front of it, but that's just the lot that we bought, you know. And so, like Jackie said, we store ours at A Grand Self-Storage, and the time can be rather restrictive. So if we get home late, like my husband often does, and I can't park the camper, then, you know, sometimes we can't get it in at 6 because, you know, he gets home late, and so it'll be the next day or whatever the case may be. They don't open until 10, and they're great and everything, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration too, is that it's hard to access that. And so when you're talking about storing them and what the case may be there, you know, I don't know what we can do. I'm not saying that we need to change the 72 hours or anything like that. I just think that we all need to be conscientious of our neighbors and understand their situations and whatnot, rather than again, like Jackie said, just blasting people on next door instead of going and talking to each other. I don't think that's fair, you know, to your neighbors. It's rude.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
I do want to make a comment. I know the lack of storage is an issue. The town is working, Melissa, our planner, and I are working with a client that is hoping to open sometime next year a property, the energy park that does have indoor-outdoor storage because they know such a high demand. And I've strongly suggested to them that with the security gate camera, we get a 24/7 operation. So in these situations, which I fully understand, they don't open until 10, you go to work at 7 on Monday, it's not gonna happen, I get it. That's why we try to work case by case, depending on the situation. And the vast majority of people are great to work with. We have a few that just won't respond and won't answer, we just have to deal with them differently through court. That's what it comes down to. But that's more of a rare situation. Sorry.
So right now, as it reads, it's 72 hours. I just want to make sure I understand
On the
this.
street.
72 hours on the street,
Correct.
and not more than 2 vehicles on the street.
2 vehicles anywhere, either on the street, in the front of this, it's property, the owner's property. So it can't be at the neighbors or across the street.
Okay, so that's what's in effect right now.
Are they vehicles or the RVs, trailers, and?
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about regular vehicles, we're talking about commercial vehicles. You know, and the town allowed several years ago, because we have a lot of self-employed truck drivers. So they park their trailers somewhere else, but they can take their rig home, they just can't park in the street, side yard. I know a handful of guys that do that. And that comes up once in a while. But this is specifically about trailers of any kind and recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles, by definition of the code.
Well, we need to take in consideration, you know, you're parking in front of your house, okay, so if your vehicle fits, that's fine in front of your house. If it doesn't fit, we can't make the neighbors say, okay, I don't mind it. I mean, it's not fair to other people either, so I think we should leave it as it is.
It really comes down to an enforcement issue, you get the right person.
Yeah,
Right.
just
To
clarify.
get here on a day-to-day basis. It's really stemmed up because I was getting bombarded with complaints about River Street because of the overflow from Valley Village. I'm not blaming them, they have their own regulations, but anymore having just 2 vehicles on a small lot is next to impossible. If all my kids lived at home, my neighbors would hate me because I've got 5 boys, so and the 4 of them drive, so I get it. But people are kind of expanding with their interpretation. They're, like Curtis said, they're trying to park in the front yard. That's not for the code. They're trying to rock every inch of grass they have in the front of this park. No, it's side yard setback. We just have to strictly enforce it or people give them time to correct it. But again, we'll talk about code enforcement here pretty soon.
So, is the majority in favor of leaving it as it is? Carol, are you good with the way the code is now, the way the code reads now? Okay. So I think the conversation needs to be code enforcement.
Okay. And just so the board knows, they try to communicate with Chris on the 4-hour window he has and do the best he can, and then I field the rest the best I can. When the calls from the front office, I just have them directly come to me. If there's a specific issue that can't wait till Monday, Tuesday, I get a hold of Chief Dwyer and have him go address it. But I don't try to have the police department do code, because they're not good at it, to be honest with you. They're law enforcement officers.
Thanks.
Sorry. Being a former cop myself, I can attest. I mean, I used to do it back in the 90s when I was a sergeant. People don't care how many, I've always told the story, they don't care how many tickets I've written or how many people I've arrested, but they care if I mess with their dog and their boat. That's just a true fact. They don't care. So,
Okay. So
thank you, everybody.
moving on to action item F, code enforcement technician discussion. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, we'll just go right into this. Earlier this year, very early this year, we lost a code officer that was here 30 hours a week, which is classified as full-time. Was his health benefits and so forth. There's some conflict because he was also farming and when I need the individual the most, which is spring and fall, which is farm season, you're planting or you're harvesting, it just didn't work out. So I advertised it again, based upon budget, because that was agreement with Gilchrist at the time. So about half was ours in Gilchrist, half we here. Just so the board knows, I don't want to propose that. We're very different as far as how we regulate. No offense to Gilchrist, we have different regulations and stuff. So I advertised here a few months ago for 20 hours a week, which is a non-benefit position. It's not the highest paid position. And to meet the budget, I got a little bit of response, but nobody I felt comfortable, because it's a thankless job. It really is. You gotta have somebody that's willing to have a lot of patience, to work with people, and not give them a do it or go to court kind of attitude. I mean, I've done myself, I know this, but, contract was safe, though. I talked to Chris Pratt is the individual's name. We're paying pretty darn good, almost 4 times what I pay somebody on an hourly basis because it's contract. They have their own insurance, their own vehicle, their own computer system, blah, blah. I can't afford more 4 hours a week. It's just not working. Looking at some other contract options, I still don't think we can afford anything more than 3 days a week that I won't be paying a full-time police officer, and that's not justified, I don't think. So, we put a little bit of money in the budget when I'm asking the board for me to re-advertise it, go back to a 30-hour-a-week full-time paid position with benefits. So I don't think I'll get anybody if I don't offer those incentives.
I'm retired in a couple months. You know.
No, you're not ready to talk, Mr. Moore. I don't.
Looking for a job, you're in town.
No. But, it's budget related. That's why I told the mayor earlier today, I'll bring it up to the board. I want to have to add some money back to, we can talk about tomorrow night. My goal is to have someone here at least 3 days a week minimum, preferably Monday through Friday. I can do that. But that's really what my request is, a financial matter, so I bring it back to the board. So that's my recommendation. Contract staff won't work. Chris does a good job based upon the time he's given. I think he works well with people. There's a disconnect with Safeville because he has a direct code enforcement line that he checks, and like today when Tim called me, it was full. He couldn't receive messages. Well, I know why it was full. It was Platteville. People were calling. But they need to be able to call town hall, talk to somebody on a regular basis. If they can't get a hold of whoever we have hired, they get a hold of me. Because like I said, I just deal with stuff like that directly. Because eventually it gets to me anyway. So if the board's okay, I'll put some numbers in the budget. I'll show that to you tomorrow night in the general fund. It'll be in the police fund. Sorry, Carl.
Will that individual not be available for answering, like, clarifying, maybe concerned citizens gonna leave their vehicles out for maybe more than 20 or 72 hours? Would they be able to contact this person then about that and explain, say, hey, I'm not gonna.
Oh, absolutely. The previous gentleman, his name was Travis, and we're always looking at extenuating circumstances. You know, family comes in. Actually, we had somebody this last summer whose parents were close to a fire outside of Colorado Springs, and they had to get out of there, and they had a camper. They called me and said, "Can they just park in front of my house, and I don't know how long they'll be here?" Absolutely. I'm not gonna tell them no.
Right.
You know, so there's extenuating circumstances. It's just those people that said, you know, well, I'm gonna camp for 3 months in the summer. I just came in my camper from front of my house. I'm not gonna tell you no. I'm not gonna work with you because I have to be consistent. Otherwise, it opens a Pandora's box.
Right, but they would be able to contact this individual.
He would be an employer.
Yeah.
He would be an employee.
He would be your employee.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the financial piece in more detail tomorrow. But I do want to give probably 1st of December, give Safeville notice. Typically, code enforcement kind of gets slower. This issue isn't. Because I found out, talked to Tim today, you don't just camp in the summer, it's all year round. You hunt, you fish. So.
Freeze the camper.
Yeah, I get that. So, I do want to keep him on and just have him do a different approach when he puts out these notices to be clear that I'm not here every week, I don't know if you move it, but just a reminder, please abide by what we have on the books. And then advertise, once we talk tomorrow, for the new code officer.
I have a couple comments just on the way we approach code enforcement in the town.
Sure.
It seems to me that we should be focused primarily on health, safety, and environmental concerns. At least, if there's someone's house that's falling over, or there's oil spilling into the street, or things like that, they're obvious concerns that someone's gonna get hurt or it's gonna physically damage someone's property. I think those should be no-brainers. This other stuff, nuisance items, that's discretionary. And this is an industrious town, and the economy's doing good. People are gonna have RVs and boats. So the number of those things are just gonna go up as the economy goes up. So we want to dissuade people from living here. It would be a pain in their ass just because some people are calling and complaining. I understand that you're gonna get complaints, and I apologize that you have to get that, but I don't think we need to come down on people every time they park their RV in the street for 74 hours. They shouldn't have to even deal with a notice on that, unless they're a habitual offender. At that point, you can use discretion, right? If you get someone, you're gonna call on them every week, and you talk to them personally before you give them a warning multiple times. At that point, I can see us moving forward with it, but we're not here to make people's lives hell. That's not what we're here for. And this is the type of stuff we're talking about. And I understand there's people around in town that it's upsetting, and I have sympathy for property values, but they're not going down in town right now. It's not happening.
We're gonna wait till it does happen? I mean, I don't think this is nitpicking. I mean, we don't have
It's just enforcement.
I'm sorry, if you get these vehicles, you need to store them somewhere. You can't store them in front of your house. I'm sorry, we want people to come in here and live, but we don't want to trash it. If we have a trashy town or vehicles all over the place, people are gonna want to live here anyway. So,
some of the stuff we're talking about, though, Hope, is people who have expired registrations. We're gonna call that as code enforcement.
well, yeah.
But that's a police matter, in my opinion. We
Well,
don't
he
need to
just
pay
said the
some-
police don't wanna do it. So, it has to be our code enforcement
So,
officer.
with all due respect to both of you, this was an item that we discussed previously. What we're talking about right now is code enforcement technician discussion.
Well, in
So-
the summary, it says we will determine how to best monitor code compliance throughout the community.
Can we continue this discussion tomorrow when we're sitting in the study session?
And-
Well, okay.
And also, if I may, we try every few years just to have a code study session on topics that I've been approached with and I approach the board. We can revisit that as well, just as a sole conversation on the different types of nuisance ordinances that we have. As far as the police department, I don't ask them. I think they're getting paid to do other things besides code enforcement. So,
I'm not asking them to.
No.
If someone's driving on the street with an expired registration, you're gonna pull them over, right?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. We don't get a code enforcement officer to do that.
If it's a
It's
new
already-
violation and they have expired registration, absolutely. If somebody calls in and says, my neighbor has expired tag in front of his house for 3 months, I'm gonna send the code officer over there because that's better suited for that situation. So, it's very debatable. I can't disagree with what you're saying, but it depends on what each town's standards want to be. It's up to you. Again, that's discretion on each town.
All right, moving on to G, agreement for services 2019 mowing season. Mr. Rankin.
I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Brown. I think I've talked enough so far.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I tried to, in the agenda cover sheet, we put out, I had 16 vendors that were on the email list that we sent this to. Mary posted it on the town website. We did not put this one on a Craigslist website. We didn't have very good luck with that the last time. Saying all that, we had two propositions. Rock Solid Landscapes, who has been our contractor for the last 4 years, and they have done a reasonably good job. They've been pretty responsive when we've had issues. Visiting with the superintendent and estimator from JR's, he's very enthusiastic and pointed out several deficiencies that probably could be stepped up in RSL's game just a little bit. But when you look at the difference in the price, maybe we're not quite as deficient as he was pointing out, because it was going to cost us to get that kind of, it cost us quite a bit more to get that kind of attention. He did point out from JR's that they've never bid the cemetery or a project like the cemetery before, so he had intentionally bid it a little bit high, not realizing how high he had bid it, because he wanted to make sure that they didn't lose money on dealing with that and taking care of it in a good way. So he's hoping already that we will put this back out next year. He has a better idea of possibly how to bid the projects and that kind of thing. With the price difference, a little over a $10,000 factor in there, you can see we did an alternate ditch work number in there this year. It's about 3/4 of the way down the page, to take care of the Main Street ditch, basically both sides of Main Street from 66 South to the south end of Calfrac down there, just because that gets overgrown, and even though it's technically still a CDOT roadway, they just don't get in there. They might get in there once a year to mow it, and it just needs it more often than that. And then the Main Street or the Highway 66 ditch from basically from the Everyday Store to Division. Both of those, we didn't do any roadside in other areas of town along Division, north or south by the schools. We didn't do anything out 32.5. We didn't do anything out 38. Any of those. We've tried to take care of those in-house with some of the equipment that we have, but with enough of the other projects coming up and that kind of thing, we're not getting them done as often as we would like to. So I may talk with the town manager and the board about the possibility of putting together a roadside maintenance program, and JR's had said that they would be very interested in bidding that. I have not asked Rock Solid that, but he wasn't real excited, as you can see from the pricing, about doing the ditch work, because they pretty much are figuring that it's just guys on weed whackers to get that knocked down and taken care of on a regular basis. But due to that price difference, I am making the recommendation that we stay with RSL for the next year. And I would ask that we go ahead and include the ditch work price in the authorization for now. And then if we opt to put together a ditch work, a separate bid sheet for that, we'll pull this one out of this contract and add it to the other contract. As far as, because it was an alternate, they were just giving us a price to do it if we opted to do that. So so if we don't end up going with a separate ditch work contract, I would like to leave the funds here to make sure that we can afford to pay them to do that if we choose to have them go ahead and do that. So,
If I may add to what you're saying.
sure.
I asked David to put this alternative for the ditches in there myself, because it's an eyesore. I get complaints on it. It's right by the schools and the banks. I've spoken to CDOT off and on for 10 years now. They don't have the budget. Don't get to it. They mow right away once a year. That's their standard operating procedure. Once I could talk to them before Harvest Daze are coming down again and do it real quick before Harvest Daze weekend. But usually not more than that. It's a financial issue with them. I'm going to mention my report, my conversation with CDOT about taking over Main Street and that process. So eventually, I think that will go through. The numbers come together, and it's going to be all right anyway. But I'm just trying to improve the appearance of some of these areas that are just constant eyesores, and people don't know who's responsible. But when you don't know, you blame the town. That's just the way it works.
And here, we're really only budgeting for Highway 66 and Main Street, for those two, David, is that?
That's correct right now, that we would have to probably, depending on how things lay out in the budget, we would take it out of the maintenance and condition of roads, is my guess.
Should this be times 6?
No, because Troy's asking about the $405 listed for JR's. JR said that basically his approach to that would be he would go in and spray everything just as it comes up in the spring, get it all killed off. They'd go in and clean it up, and then they'd do some spot trimming the rest of the year, but he would not anticipate having to be in there more than a couple of times during the season, so he would only. What's that?
Sorry, killing off the grass.
He basically would be looking at killing pretty much anything in the ditch.
Agent Orange.
Is that the canal ditch?
No, well, it's just the bar ditch alongside the road.
It flows toward that new improvement intersection at 66 and Main, and then it gets to the river. Okay.
How do you feel about that, David? Just the pesticide approach?
Well,
Herbicide approach.
we've used that approach several times. I mean, we went in there and we whacked it down 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, and then we used basically a Roundup, a kill-all type product on what was there. Anything that's in the ditch hinders the flow, and we've got very little flow in town as it is. So that doesn't bother me a lot in that scenario. I mean, basically the Roundup goes inert once it hits the dirt. It wipes out the plants, and then the thing that does concern me a little bit is if you did that consistently and we didn't have any kind of root base in there, then we might get some additional washing in that ditch. That hasn't been a problem in that ditch. We have way more tumbleweeds and weeds in that ditch. We did try a product this year on some of our roadsides. It's called Brash. It's basically an industrial 2,4-D that is supposed to let the grasses, get rid of the broadleaves and the weeds and just let the grasses continue to grow. I don't feel like we got very good results with it. Don't feel like it was hard enough on the weeds. So I'm not sure what the best answer is. If I could, if we had some 16-year-old kids that would put their phone down and actually handle a weed whacker, that would probably be our best answer. But
so you want us to approve the $7,680 for those ditches with the hope that you won't spend it?
I shouldn't say the hope that we won't spend it. I'm saying it may not stay in this contract because it's an alternate. If we decide to put together a roadside program that would include Division 32.5 and some of the other areas, then I would pull that from this contract and put it in with the roadside contract.
That's still to be discussed.
But that has yet, so at this point, it needs to be approved and it will probably get spent. Now, having said that, we asked for a bid for them to be in there every 2 weeks and knock that down. So this price includes them being in there every 2 weeks. But the understanding in the RFP was that it may not be required that often. So they will only bill us, but this is a worst case scenario, Mrs. Mayor, as far as this, if they did this all 6 months, and they did it every 2 weeks, all 6 months, that's what our cost would be.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an agreement for services for the 2019 mowing season with Rock Solid Landscapes Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $65,000 pending review by legal counsel and authorize mayor to execute same.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Harold Leggett,
All right.
Nick Ralston, Spencer Bradnan,
Aye.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris.
Yes.
Alright. Moving forward, we're gonna go to reports. Chief Dwyer.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. We're slowing up a little bit in the agency. The amount of accidents that we had this last month was lower, significantly lower than other months, and because we're in school again. And then some other numbers are a little bit lower too. So usually in the autumn, winter months, we slow down, and knock on wood, that's the same for this. We wrote 100 citations last month, so they're out there still. Other than that, homecoming was Friday at the high school. Everything went well, and I guess the snow hit right afterwards, and then there were a couple of accidents and altercations and whatnot that we responded to. But homecoming itself was a hit. So, other than that, I'll answer any questions, and nothing more to add to what's in my written report.
I have a question. When we have accidents on Highway 66 between 19 and 21, does CDOT get reports of those accidents?
I would assume so. We submit everything every month, and I'm assuming they make a request of all the accidents that we've had or any other things that happen on the highways for sure. And then half the time we can actually use them and ask for their help on these accidents too. So I'm not sure if they show up and assist us on these accidents, if they have to write their own report or make their own stat. But my assumption is they receive them, but we don't actually send them a copy of the reports or give them the stat that I'm aware of. That's something they initiate themselves.
And they do. There's times where I've called them the day after an accident on 66 or 85, they already know about it very well. Even though we work it.
So they're aware of the issues on Town 21 and 66?
Absolutely.
So where are we as far as getting those blinking signs for them? Didn't we discuss one time that we were gonna get like blinking caution lights?
Yeah, I remember that, but I don't remember if it was approved for purchase.
For where?
21 and 66, somewhere that we wanted like flashing lights, like, I don't know.
Illuminated intersection.
Road 21 is coming in, I mean, I don't know, people aren't slowing down, and we need to let them be aware that.
What we talked about,
I thought-
for Sturkle, we were talking
Yeah.
about doing,
Well, I thought we talked about doing it there.
that was to slow the traffic, to show like a digital thing that
Yeah.
speeding or.
No, just like a yellow sign.
On
Caution.
20, on 21,
Or 66.
north, south.
That would
Road
go south and north.
I talked to CDOT about actually just as real quick, Chief, is Karen Schneider's at CDOT during the earlier Upper Front Range Transportation Region meeting, the first one of the year actually. We spoke about this with Director Johnny Olson. Will County had actually budgeted some funding to do a partnership with CDOT to do those improvements at 21, similar to how 19 was with the turning lanes, with the widened shoulders, the larger sign. And as the board knows, but the audience does, is where the state is separated into 5 transportation regions. And the Dr. Cog out of Denver region comes up to County Road 19, and we're what's called in the Upper Front Range, which goes to 19 on our end. And the monies were available for the Dr. Cog side of 66, but no monies were approved for our side of 66. So CDOT pulled that off their priority list, and Will County, even on behalf of Platteville, argued we need to put that back on there. And shortly after that meeting is when we had, there was a situation Carl told me about where someone was coming toward Platteville trying to turn north on County Road 21. We had that rise right before you get 21 coming from the west. We couldn't slow down enough, and we had, I don't know how many cars were impacted, but quite a few. So.
I think Will County budgeted $300,000 and CDOT didn't even let them know that they pulled it.
That was pretty apparent, so we need to have some better conversations.
That's ultimately the solution for that problem. I don't know that any sign or anything would help that much, but if people could just get out of the roadway,
And put their phone down.
right?
Right.
Yes. I'm thinking of things that are actually going to happen.
And I don't know, I think those flashing lights would maybe help, but the majority of the accidents, they're head-ons, or they wanna go around people if they're.
Oh,
so
they're
it's-
passing.
Yeah, it's not necessarily because they won't see a stop sign, but it's bad.
Oh, I see.
But shoot, anything would help, maybe someone see that flashing light and it'll get their attention.
People get very impatient on that stretch, or any stretch road, but that one's even more dangerous.
Anything else for Carl? Thank you, Carl. Mr. Brand?
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Took enough time on the mowing contract. Unless there's questions for me to answer on my report, I'll stand by what I wrote.
Any questions?
I thought you already gave us the report, sorry. I'd like to be talking again.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brand.
Wait, on Sewer Lagoon, are we doing okay with the, in here you're talking about
The chlorine.
yeah, it was higher levels and stuff, and
Right.
Have we balanced out with that yet, or?
We have. It just took a little longer than normal. It was kind of a weird, we have an issue every spring and every fall when the temperatures change on us. The ponds literally turn over and it pulls some, for lack of a better term, some of the junk or the bacteria is on the bottom to the top, and it just kind of messes with how the effluent is. Normally, we just turn up the chlorine application and take care of that, but we had such, we were over aerating, which doesn't seem possible with the aerators we have out there, because we already had some odors, which normally, any odors that go with it, and I apologize to anybody on Rogers Farm, I don't think it was bad enough that I didn't get any phone calls, so I think we were okay, but, I noticed it because I'm pretty sensitive to it and I'm pretty picky about it.
Just
but,
when the wind blew, that's all.
We always pray for a north wind pushing the.
South.
How long we smelling in that? But there has been some slight odors every spring and every fall when that turns over. Typically, we turn up a little bit of aeration and we're okay. After pulling some results, we think we were actually over aerating and we were starting to nitrify just a little, nitrify and denitrify, which if we had the full-fledged mechanical plant online, we would be okay, but we were leaving just enough, I don't remember if it was nitrates or nitrites, I get them mixed up, in there that we were literally, I had done a sample with the chlorine and I put the chlorine in and you watched it turn from, it's supposed to be a pretty pink color. I put enough chlorine in there intentionally that I had a purple color, and I watched it go from purple to clear in 45 seconds. It just literally sucked the chlorine out of there. So we were feeding the maximum amount of chlorine, and then we started, we bought a tub of pool chlorine pucks, and we added a bunch of those into our chlorine contact chamber to help bring the levels up. But we still had an issue where we had a high E. coli count going out to the river. Now, when you take into consideration what our volume is going into the river and what the river volume is, it did not create an issue in the river, but it still created a one-time violation where we were high for one of our counts. And we will report that to the state. So that's why I was making the board aware of that happened. But to answer your question, Mr. Blum, it has settled down. We're back to feeding only about 25 to 30% on our chlorine, which is a normal range, but to get our disinfection that we need. So, okay.
All right, thank you.
Now I'm done, Hope.
Anything else?
Glad to hear somebody else is having it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brand. Mr. Rankin?
This is the mayor, members of the board. A couple items I'll highlight from my report. I'm working on a memo for the community to get out in the November utility billing. And we'll post it on social media and we'll announce it on on various sites here locally. Is to explain what's going to happen here probably sooner than later the town has been mandated by the state of Colorado to go to mechanized sewer treatment facility. The lagoons will go away in approximately 4 years, which is a benefit. The odor will be reduced, but the cost of your sewer base rate will substantially, potentially go up. So I need to explain all that in detail to the community. I'll get that out first of the month. The mayor asked me to do that, and by all means. Part of that is we looked at some of our surrounding communities, over a dozen, and kind of analyzed their utility bills. Every town's a little different, just so people can see. The first thing I'm gonna hear, and I've already heard, is Platteville's too expensive for water and sewer. Okay, I get that, but we're not alone. Different towns have different rates, and I want to show that just so we can, full disclosure of what we're trying to do. The CDPHE compliance scope that I mentioned, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. The grant we currently have with Farm Local Affairs to complete the utility plan update, which is step 1. I sent a performance milestone measure letter to Don Sandoval, director of our region for DOLA, which is for the grant. David has a conference call with the subcontractor that's doing the finance rate study part of the plan. And JBA Engineering Consultants is actually doing the update. They did the initial plan in 2011. They still, what I'm trying to get at is they still believe the board will have the draft plan by mid-December. You just won't have the rate study yet. That probably won't be completed until early spring. So with that said, Dave and I are going to talk to Ratellis as the subcontractor or the co-contractor that the board needs for budgetary purpose and the community needs for understanding what the rate potentials can be, because there needs to be a discussion with the board on, do we phase this or do we implement the full recommended amount to pay off this sewer again, which is going to be at least a 20-year obligation, debt obligation, either through bond or direct loan. I'm hoping direct loan. I even asked the state, I said, if we have to put a bond initiative on the ballot and the voters don't approve it, what do we do? You don't get your funding and you actually pay more in the end because we'll be fined daily for not being compliant with state water standards. So I'm hoping for a direct loan. But this is obviously going to be a work in progress for the next 4 years. I'll give you more updates. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but I met with Mr. Bill Braun with CDOT. He's the new access control permit person. I presented him, we had talked about doing what's called a devolution of Main Street and Vasquez. Those are 2 CDOT-owned roads. I know pretty much for a fact, because of state funding and all we talked about with transportation funding, that Main Street and Vasquez Boulevard will never get more than just a patch here or there. They basically admitted that to me. So since we last talked about it, I had Mr. Betheris, Steve Betheris, the county engineer, put together a estimate of improvements. Last week I presented these to Mr. Bill Braun at CDOT, and he, this afternoon, actually yesterday afternoon, met with Johnny Olson, director. I've not heard back from him. But we're proposing about a $4.5 million improvement to Main Street, which is from 85 connection by the Energy Park South County 28, which is the business 85 loop. And roughly just under $1 million improvement, take that back, $1.2 million improvement to reconstruct Front Street, or Vasquez. These proposals are for full reconstruction, not patch, not just mill and overlay. You tear the street up completely and you redo it right, include patching for curb and gutter. The one thing Mr. Bilderbraun indicated is we put utility improvements for water lines on Main Street, which when we do a full reconstruction, that common sense, you want to get that done too. So you want to dig it back up when the water line breaks. That's about $400,000. He said, leave it in there, but the director will take that out. You're going to pay that with your own dime. But if $4 million, And this is, our engineer over the years has proven he's done a pretty good job estimating projects and usually is over instead of under. And one time, when we reconstructed Circle Boulevard, that was an economy-based issue. We only had 2 contractors instead of the normal 8 that bid on that project. The city of Greeley is finalizing a similar process for a very similar 3-mile stretch, give or take. And Mr. Batheris is involved with that, our engineer. That is about 90% complete, according to Mr. Villebron. So I'm telling you this just to kind of give you what may turn out to be. Their project is about $4.5 million as well. And CDOT's in 90% agreement with the cost estimate. It's actually at the State Transportation Commission going under vote later next month. And what'll happen is once we agree on the dollar amount, I come back to you, we pass a resolution as a governing body, we send that to CDOT, State Transportation Commission, and we start the paper process. So it's a unique situation where they don't have the funding for maintenance, but they do have funding available to do demolitions. Don't ask me, Larry, why that is. I see you laughing over there.
I wouldn't dare.
Wasn't there some sort of negotiation process that you had talked about when we first entered into
We're
this?
negotiating right now, because what's gonna happen is, I give him our numbers. If Johnny's the director of Region 4, he's gonna come back probably half.
Right.
Say, no, we'll give you 1.5 million. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Okay.
And I'm gonna counter offer to say, no, we need
So what did Greeley end up, their project was 4.5, do you know what CDOT actually agreed?
close to 4.
They got pretty close to what they were saying.
It's from 85, and Dave, I can't remember what it's a highway, I never knew it was up there, but it's from 85 out to the airport.
It was the shortest state highway in the state of
It's
Colorado.
3 miles long. And
They asked for 4.5 and they got 4.
Yeah, I don't know all the nuances to that. I don't know if it involved traffic signals and so on and so forth, but.
Am I understanding this correctly, that when the demolition process occurs, well, in particular, reference to Vasquez, that the state Department of Transportation is going to pay to repave it?
They're gonna give, basically the way it works simplistically is they just give us a check.
They're gonna sell it to us.
They're selling us the property.
And providing funds to rebuild it, essentially.
We basically negotiate an agreed upon price, which is hopefully fair to both parties. This is all taxpayers involved, obviously.
And the same is true as with Main Street.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Villebron did not have any questions on Mr. Batheris's cost estimate for Vasquez. We did go over the Main Street process in somewhat detail for about an hour. And I know this ties into the fire department building next door, which is another topic with the drainage. It's all CDOT right away. It's not the county's responsibility, but we built in, from when I met with Mr. Villebron, I had Steve built in storm drainage improvements, which would positively impact our new fire district if we could come to an agreement. So CDOT would pay for the money to do those improvements. But timing is off. This is gonna probably be a mid to late 2019 process to get approved. So,
Now, if we took ownership of Main Street, would we also take over the CDOT right away on the ditches as well?
on South Main, yes, not along 66. Yep. So we put as much as we could possibly in there.
So Main Street, are you talking about Main Street from 66 north or?
All the way.
Okay.
When you come into Business 85 from Greeley or from the north, go all the way down and basically it dead ends at kind of 28 south of the port of entry. That whole section is roughly 3 miles. Another point of interest, the Platte Energy Park, Dave and I are working with Dale Boehner and Nick Francis. They're 2 of the primary investors. It's pretty much built, it's all built out for the most part. Their requirements are still 1 lot that has to be sold and developed, the North Anadarko. But we had a letter of credit for the public improvements. We're doing the final punch list, we're finishing that up. I think they just have to do some patching, crack sealing, and they'll be done with that. I mentioned Union Pacific and the closure of County Road 30. There's a lot of people involved with this one. We have Union Pacific, CDOT, Will County, and us. Dave and I have been having meetings. We met with Union Pacific. They definitely want the closure because they expand their stacking. They have their distance, their 2 mile distance where they can add another side track. That would greatly help Platteville because it would reduce the amount of times County Road 32 going to cemetery is closed. So that's a strong possibility. We met today with another party involved with that to get a 60-foot right-of-way to build a new connection between 30 and 32, which would be like a south front street, similar to north front street. And we have a verbal agreement with CDOT, again, where they could potentially give us some funding to use for a grant through the Department of Local Affairs, because that's a W truck route, to get those improvements done. So there's all kinds of spokes in this wheel.
Well, and Barb Kirkmeyer, Will County Commissioners, have got us $1 million as well.
Yeah, Commissioner Kirkmeyer's involved. There's just a lot of players in this. This is one of the 11 closures along 85 that Will County, CDOT, and Union Pacific have been negotiating. This is the one closure, though, that is owned by municipal government. The other 10 are owned and maintained by Will County.
When we say closure, we mean permanent.
Permanent access from 85 to that County Road 30. It will completely be taken away. So that's going to be a work in progress.
And the Union Pacific did agree that when that would happen, they're gonna extend that siding north. To where they're not gonna block 32 and a half or 32, right? That's part of the agreement.
The hope is they would extend it south,
Okay.
since 30 will be closed, and then it would reduce the number of times that 32 is blocked.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to work out something similar in LaSalle, because LaSalle is even worse.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work out.
Yeah. So, I'm still working on the senior bus grant. I have a conference call tomorrow with the contractor and the bus vendor. We spoke last time about the town's interest in acquiring Platte River Farms, that 50-acre subdivision next to Bella Vista, south of 66. I did reach out. I haven't heard back from them yet. I did reach out. I explained to them that because of the recorded surface use agreement and mineral rights agreements, that the town has lost interest basically, unless they can show us that we could use it for outdoor recreational amenity, water storage, so on and so forth. Otherwise, it's just pasture land. And I'll let you know as soon as I hear back from them, but I put it back on them. Just out of curiosity, just an update on the fitness room, the new one that's opened up this summer. I had Gordon dropped off some monthly signage sheets, so I had Charlene and Devin tie these up. 82, looks like, these aren't exact numbers, they're estimates, but 82 total users who used it a total of 270 times in the last 3 months.
That's good.
And winter's coming on, so the uses, I've noticed, because I drive by there when I come to work and go home, that it'll probably go up because it's darker, it's too cold to walk at night, so on and so forth.
Especially around January.
Yeah. This last week was a predicator, we hope that was a winter. The last thing I want to bring up, if any questions from you, is I was going to bring this up during the previous conversation on wreck and commercial vehicles. I decided not to. As you may or may not be aware, I've been working with RE1 School District on bus issues. Earlier this summer, we put some no parking between the signs for the bus stop on River for Valley Village. To me, it's a safety issue. People were parking there and the kids were walking between cars trying to get the bus. We painted the curb, put the signs about 100 feet apart. The gentleman that lives in Valley Village and has a bus, who, we try for years to keep buses in all 3 towns during school hours, just for emergency purposes. And since I've been here 15 years, I've seen buses parked all over town depending on who the drivers are. Where I live in Reed Subdivision, Shoal, Old Town, typically never in Bella Vista because it's too restricted, of course not Valley Village. But I've seen them parked in Rogers Farm and Stevens Circle as well. the bus driver asked us if during this no parking school bus zone, if the bus could park there, because there's no place you can park in Valley Village. So this was the last semester before summer break. We put up the signs, he started parking there. A gentleman started complaining that he was walking the crosswalk and there was a lady in a wheelchair that could potentially get hit. I explained it's not a crosswalk, it's a school bus. But apparently people use that because it's a catty corner, it's right across from the alley. So finally I asked David to move the signs on the south side further down to clear that open to where the bus could still park there. It wasn't a visibility issue for safety. But now the issue is the bus is parked in front of this gentleman's house, across the street.
It's not in front of his house, right?
It's across the street. I'm gonna pass this around. He took a lot of pictures. He came in late today and dropped this off. I had multiple conversations with him about the safety, whether it's a crosswalk, lady in a wheelchair. And finally I just said, okay, we're gonna move the bus farther away so that it alleviates your concern. Now there's another one. This is attention city council members. This is today's date, came in this afternoon. My name is Brad Abels. I live at 507 River Street. I'm having an issue about where the school bus number 24 parks during the day. Since the school year started, the driver of bus 24 is parked outside my front window across the street. I normally wouldn't have a problem except it blocks my only view of the mountains in winter time. I'm only asking that the bus park further south towards the end of the mobile home park. A few signs may have to be moved for bus parking, and it will still accommodate the other vehicles that park there. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter, Mr. Brad Ames. I'm going to pass this around. There's a bunch of pictures.
If it's moved down, it will just be in front of someone else's home?
Well, if you move it any further down, it's going to be in front of former Mayor Bonnie Dunst's house. I'll call her tomorrow, see if she cares. Move it farther down, it'll be blocking her lift station. We can't block her lift station. We move it even further down past, I'm just talking like a bus length distance down. Then it's going to be so close to Goodrich Court, we're going to have a visibility issue, which will cause issues. So, this is the first complaint I've ever had, either as police chief or town manager, about where school bus parks. So I'm bringing it to your attention. He requested I do so. I've already got a long time with Mr. Abels. We just have a disagreement on this one issue here. Not to downsize the complaint, but I literally stood on his curb in front of his house and I cannot see the mountains. The trees at Valley Village block, not the school bus. I think, Mary, he turned this in to you. He offered to come here tonight, and he didn't want to.
He's inquired a couple of times about speaking to the board, but seems hesitant to do so. But he brought in, and explained his packet that he wanted you to take a look at. For some time, he put quite a bit of time into it apparently.
So without the bus being there, he still can't see the mountains from his property?
In my view, and this is what I told him correctly, that's not the issue. That's just my view.
Did he not say it was across the street?
Right.
It's across, it's not
So it's not in front of his house?
No,
It's across the street.
On a public street.
Right. It's not
Is it
there
there
for
all
more than
weekend
72
as well?
hours.
And that's a good point. It's never on the weekend. It's not there the 3 months of summer. It's during regular school hours.
The bus driver lives nearby and he parks there between the morning run and the afternoon run.
And right now, it's Monday through Friday, and then I think after Thanksgiving, it goes to Monday to Thursday, or Tuesday through Friday.
Right, Tuesday through Friday.
And I'm gonna try to be accommodating the best I can. I mean, a lot of people park out there because Valley Village tightened up their parking restrictions. I know he's thinking there's a double standard because this is not regulated by commercial vehicles or trailers or RVs, and it's simply not. Now, my perspective as town manager is I want to work with the schools. I want at least 3 buses in town at all times in case we have an incident in schools where we gotta get kids out there quickly. This is a situation where the bus driver happens to live in Valley Village where he can't park. That's my perspective.
It's not in a code violation as far as I can see. It must be classified as a commercial vehicle, right? 'Cause he's moving it every day. So it's not,
It's used every day.
it's not in violation of code.
This gentleman retired and stays home all day, or is he working during the day, or?
I talked to him, he's pretty much retired.
Nothing wrong with the retired people.
You know, Mayor, they're looking for more school bus drivers.
I'll tell you what, I will make an offer to paint up some of the mountains on the side of the bus.
Thinking outside the box.
They'll be busy and maybe, you know, the view will improve.
Just for, Larry, don't hesitate. But I do want the board to know that, you know, Mr. Abel and I don't agree on this. He definitely has a point of view. I want to provide everything to the board. You have the options come here. I will give you my opinion, which I did. I think no matter where that bus parks in the street, it's going to be an issue. In my perspective to you, the board, and I explained to Mr. Abels, I said for about 6 months it was a safety issue, so I removed the safety issue. Now it's a visibility issue. So I don't.
But it's not visibility for public safety. It's
Not public
visibility
safety.
Right.
At all.
Or see them out. Well, you could obviously see that, I mean, nobody can see on that side of the trees there, you're not gonna see the mountains anyway, like you said.
That's my perspective. You can check
When
it
the
out.
leaves are off, maybe.
On a serious note, it seems that having the school buses in town for the stated reason that they're to potentially evacuate kids from school in an emergency far outweighs the imposition of the bus being in its location.
For 7 hours.
Right, and only during the school year, and only Monday through Friday.
And after holidays, Tuesday.
And I'm certainly sympathetic to getting insulting when somebody parks in front of your house.
It's
Right? I
not
get
in front
it.
of his house.
It's across the street, right?
Right.
But it's only for a few hours and it's not in code violation, so I'm not inclined for us to do anything different about it.
We need to protect our kids, and where's the school bus garage in Gilchrist?
It's the Gilchrist, and initially when you approached me this past school year, not last year, but this last spring semester. And I know I talked to the transportation director for RE1 that, of course, they're understaffed, they can't hire enough bus drivers, they've had to combine routes. Because he actually does 2 routes every day. He does the early route pickup, then he goes back and he goes to the same thing and picks up the late route pickup, what they call early late route. And he pretty much does the same thing after school.
Yeah.
In order to entice people to be, they don't get paid a whole lot. I mean, to entice them to be bus drivers, they can take it home and park it during their work week and not have to drive to Gilchrist every day, twice a day. And I get that, and that's not my reason. My reason is I always want school buses in town for emergency purpose.
Right. I agree, that extra 20 minutes going up and coming back would be very crucial for our children.
At least that's my justification. Mr. Abels wants to tell you differently, but that's his choice.
I don't see any reason for divorce.
I think we've accommodated him enough,
Right.
and it's in a position it needs to be in.
Well, there's a higher good that's being addressed by where it's being parked. To me, that's the bottom line.
I will reach out to Mr. Abels tomorrow, have a conversation with him.
We welcome him.
And I'm more than welcome to come to talk to the board. Again, that's my perspective, he has his own, but I'm gonna stand by my perspective. Not to offend anybody. Otherwise, that's all I have. Any questions you may have, we have a study session tomorrow at 6:30. It starts early, both, most of you just be at home in time, we'll have some food available. And depending on how tomorrow night goes, it may be the last study session until after the election, and we'll do one more review. Because of the ballot items in this November 6th midterm election impact our budget. So.
Any other questions from Mr. Rankin? Okay, so today I was at the rally, or the Capitol building, the rally for Mayors Against 112, and we had a good amount of people there. It went very well. I am going to ask that we may consider at our study session adding an amount of money for attorneys litigation if 74 passes, adding that to our budget just to be safe, you know. when we go and review after the elections are done. Keep that in the back of our minds.
And you're asking for what, I'm sorry?
An amount of money to put in our budget if 74 passes. Obviously, we'll cross that bridge after the midterms are done. And then Troy, David, and I, are you part of that, David, have a meeting tomorrow with another internet provider. So hopefully that will go well. So, and that's all I have. Anything else before the board?